ho. Merry Christmas. Race season is over and I can rest. Whew, so after 5 races back to back, 3 of which I participated in at the maximum of my energy levels, I did end up with 3 demigods, all 3rd places. That's okay by me. It was a lot of a grind regardless. I just want to talk about a little bit how I did it. Went from a softcore Andy to a hardcore solo self-found medium Chad, I guess. So at the conclusion of the Endless Delirium event, I did get my 3rd demigods, and I can't wait to rest. I am barely recovered after all of those events back to back, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I did. Maybe this can help you guys understand some offense, defense in the game, and maybe learn how to approach hardcore solo self-found. This was the first time for me. There was a lot of learning. Just a quick little overview of that. Let's get into it, and let me take this hot thing off. Whew, so welcome back, subscribers and new friends. Good to have you all here. The events are over and we can relax. We don't have to be annoyed by them anymore. We don't have to wonder where GGG is with their communication. It does look like they are starting the announcement of the announcement seasons. We're going to see how that goes. Fingers are crossed that 3.17 will be good and really, really big and awesome. There's going to be so much competition early February. Honestly, I'm excited about Elden Ring, which I will be playing on stream. Can't wait for it. I'm a huge Dark Souls fan. So yeah, regarding all these events, just a quick little overview. It was 5 10-day events back to back to back to back to back. Absolute endurance competition. In Endless Delve, you're trying to get as deep as possible. And in all the other events, you're trying to get as high level as possible. Players were competing for the top 5 spots in each ascendancy per bracket. So hardcore, top 5 raiders, softcore, top 5 raiders, etc., etc. If you got that, you were awarded with a Demigod's Authority sword, and it was pretty cool. This was my first time ever actually racing, and I ended up getting 3 demigods, 2 in the raider category and 1 for occultist. In all of the events that I competed in, just because I think it makes it a little bit more interesting, less grindy, honestly, because it really, really rewards you for taking the time to not die. I did play hardcore solo self-found for all of them. So yeah, behind me right now, you can see where I was looking on the last day of hardcore solo self-found Endless Delirium. I did end up in 3rd place. Fun little fact, the 1st place for hardcore solo self-found occultist was actually taken by a GGG employee. It says that I got 2nd place on my sword, but it was technically 3rd place. Absolute Giga Chad move by that employee there. You know, big respect to them. Honestly, I think it is really cool to have absolute proof that, you know, who knows where they work, if they're an intern or a lead developer, but I think that's awesome that they do have people that are very successful at playing the hardest version of the game and doing incredibly well. You know, so, you know, absolute props to Takes. They killed it, and there was no way that me or Pill was going to catch them. This won't be news to anyone, but how do you win a demigods in hardcore solo self-found in a race? A of all, play a lot. And this is probably my #1 complaint about the whole thing. No matter what, it's an endurance competition, even if the window is, you know, wider or shorter, but it's gonna just incentivize you to play a lot. This is not something for someone who isn't playing full time. If you want to get top 5, maybe there were occasional brackets that you could find that had lower competition, but no matter what, this was an endurance race that required a lot of hours. So, you know, absolutely that sucks if you want to try to participate as a casual player, but this is one of the very few ways that you can actually compete in Path of Exile and competitive modes. And no matter what, if you want to compete, you got to compete, right? And within those pools, there's going to be enough people that try really, really hard. And so, you know, it makes sense that at the very top, it's just going to take a lot of time and a lot of investment. My one complaint there is it being 10 days in a row. That's a very, very long endurance competition. Doing 5 of these in a row of 10 days, it is wearing on, I think, even the most intense racers in the game. So next up, hardcore solo self-found. What is it? Why did I do it? So traditionally in the normal mode of the game, in a regular temp league, I like softcore trade just because I have more options. I like being able to think of different builds, think of different weird uniques that I can put together and just make it like a really wacky or interesting build. I really like to play things that are off meta and experiment and come up with my own builds. And softcore trade is really the main way that you're going to do that. Both by hardcore and solo self-found, those are putting restrictions on the game. Either you die once and you're out, so you can't really experiment with different defensive layers too much. And solo self-found is you can't trade with other players. So you know, you're just not able to find decent loot, trade it, you know, barter and exchange with other people and be able to extract value that maybe, you know, maybe you're not going to take advantage of directly. However, in a race environment, this is really, really cool because it means that you are kind of on an island on your own and you have to explore things. Each person is competing on a very, very fair playing ground. But the number one thing in hardcore is your defensive layers. So what are the best defenses in the game? Number one, you want to have really, really good armor. Physical hits, there are very few ways to mitigate those physical hits outside of armor. You can get phys taken as, you can get endurance charges, but other than that, armor is the way. Most of the hits that are incoming are some sort of physical or physical hybrid. And being able to mitigate that stuff is the number one way that you're going to keep your character from dying. So on all of my winning characters, my losing characters did play around block, but all of my winning characters, I did base it entirely around determination and grace, getting my evasion and armor as high as possible. And in addition to that, I would try to sneak in Ghost Shrouds with some energy shield. Sometimes in solo self-found, I wasn't able to do that. Now, in addition to that, the number one defense to me is spell suppression. So while most of the attacks that are coming in are physical based, the scariest thing that, in my opinion, will just one-shot you off screen is spells. Yeah, some errant fireball, some spells from the sky, anything like that can just come out of nowhere and one-shot you. And the way that spell suppression works is you get spell suppression chance, and then by default, all of that damage based on that chance will be cut in half. So if you have 100% spell suppression chance, all spells coming in are 50% damage, and you can actually get that up to 55% mitigated for only 45% damage taken. In addition to that, there is a mastery on the spell suppression nodes that say you take reduced extra damage from critical strikes that are suppressed. So not only are you mitigating 55% of the damage, but a giant chunk of that damage, if it's a critical strike, is also mitigated, and you're effectively not taking any crit damage in addition. Now, a bonus on top of that is you can just sneak in block. You know, if you're wearing a shield, you can get max res. On my characters, I basically looked for On's Heritage, which is a shield that gives you +2 to all max res if you have no endurance charges, and gives you really, really good armor and decent block. It was basically best in slot for me for hardcore. That was really my secondary defensive layer, but primarily armor, evasion, Ghost Shrouds, and spell suppression. Spell suppression is actually by far the number one in my opinion. Then armor, then grace / Ghost Shrouds, and then max res, block, anything else in addition to that. I know a lot of people like block, they build around it. In softcore, it's totally fine. You can have really, really good shields that are recover on block. But here's the issue. The way that I read block is you can cap out by default 75% block. What that says to me is you have a 25% chance to take full damage from the incoming hit, right? So the way that block is usually balanced is around getting max res. And honestly, unless you really, really hyper invest into it, max res is kind of, you know, it kind of caps off, right? And it doesn't have much for anti-critical strike. Once I figured out that spell suppression is absolutely mandatory, at least in my opinion, for hardcore, by losing my Inquisitor because he was spell block based. He actually had 77 spell block and 79 max cold res, and he still died to just a regular mob's hit that happened to crit. And I didn't have the big mitigation that spell suppression did for me there. Absolutely recover my life and not even worry about it. It really highlighted. Now you could argue spell suppression may be OP, but for me, if I'm in a hardcore environment, I'm going to gravitate towards any deterministic 100% some sort of mitigation instead of sometimes taking spiky damage that might come out of nowhere, right? Even if block went to 90%, right? Which is way, way higher than it currently is. That means 10% of the time you're taking full damage. I just don't think with how spiky and crazy the damage is in this game, anything outside of 100% mitigation is even going to be reasonable for hardcore. Honestly, if they took out 100% mitigation from spell suppression and armor, I would maybe never play hardcore ever again. I think that this was a cool experience of discovering what the good defenses are for a hardcore environment. If they didn't give me such very strong mitigation, and I know we didn't have that in the past, I would feel really, really uncomfortable. Maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe if they took it away, I could figure a way to adapt. But honestly, I really like where the defense is right now. Maybe by default, block has, 0.5 to 1% recover life or ES on block. That could be kind of a cool way to, it's not going to totally help, but if you have a large enough life pool, large enough max res, large enough armor, you could maybe at least survive decently through shotguns, by default. And it's something that maybe would scale based on recovery. That's just an idea off the top of my head. It might be awful. But yeah, it really just came down to taking a lot of time. That the solo self-found part of this is really just taking a lot of time between each encounter if a map was really, really particularly difficult, or if I had trouble scaling a certain way, just knowing that, hey, it's going to take more time, more investment, more thought, picking up more things and identifying the items. Honestly, it was really, really fun. And I am considering at least doing some hardcore solo self-found runs in future leagues. If 3.17, maybe it has something that incentivizes me to do that, I might put this as part of my regular rotation of having, I have my softcore trade character and I have my hardcore solo self-found, a side of my account that I can kind of balance throughout a league for the flavor of what I'm looking for, be able to speak to both sides of the experience. It might be a cool thing for you guys to be able to get both sides of the coin from me here. All right, putting this suit back on to say goodbye to y'all. Thanks for hanging out and watching, getting a little digest of what these events were. I'm reminded of the David Foster Wallace essay, a supposedly fun thing that I will never do again. Not quite that far, but I'm definitely going to be taking it a little bit more carefully and more structured if they do another race event like this. The number one thing that I would say is just take it easy. Don't stress out about anything. It's just a meaningless item in a video game. Don't go crazy. I don't think most people did, but I just want to remind everyone that the number one reward at the end of the day for video games is having fun. And if you're not having fun, don't do it. The past couple days, we had a lot of fun with some roguelikes like Hades and Dead Cells. Absolutely love them. And today I'm going to be checking out some more survival horror like Project Zomboid. So anyway, don't forget to have fun, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.